who's a speaker. Labdien, hello, hi, how are you? I'm very happy to see so many people here, such a wide crowd, so many eyes and so many minds who are ready and willing to follow these topics and listen to these presentations. So my job here today is to talk more about diet and food consumption and how our decision of eating one or different type of foods impacts the planet and the ecological system that we depend on and many other species depend on as well. So I create a zootech, kind of newsletter that I support, that also supports Rig Animal Save, and what we do there is we talk about climate protections and animal protection, because they're very combined. And I would like to tell my story about with you. Please think, how do you think? How many animals do we eat in Latvia, in the world, a day, for example? How many animals do we eat? Well, of course, I'm asking this question with the idea, or this idea that this has a huge impact on the world. And I think that this number is going to shock you. Maybe I'm pressing the wrong button. Okay, here. So the number is with 9 zeros. So every year in the world, we slaughter all kinds of animals. That might be chickens, smaller animals like chickens, or bigger animals like cows. But that's without counting sea life, because you don't really count sea life by each life. You count them in tons. But in Latvia, the number is, of course, smaller. But in the during a year, the number is 21 million. Yes, so it's everybody. It's cattle, pigs, sheep, all kinds of poultry. Yeah, and this is the number of animals that we slaughter, yeah, for consumption of meat. So, and you can see that the consumption in the world is rising each year, not just in the world itself, but by individuals as well. Mostly because of in the countries, more developed countries like Europe and USA, they also look at our how much meat we consume, what do we eat, what do we drink, what do we look at, and they take this information in and look at all the consumption together. So maybe America wouldn't be the greatest example with all their piles of trash that they have, but eating meat has consequences. So I'm not going to be talking too much about numbers, because you don't really remember those numbers. But also the numbers may be different in different researches. But just in slaughtering animals, by slaughtering livestock, the environmental impact that it has is greater than all transport combined. So there are all kinds of different methods to calculate this, and it's quite a new field of research. But the conclusion is that the livestock industry together is worse for the environment than transport. From one side, we could be more individually responsible, yeah? Eat better food, fly less. But from the other side, we also should make sure that the society altogether for example, the food that you can get at schools, yeah, or the standardized foods that you get at malls should be more environmentally friendly. So the the choices should be more environmentally friendly, not just individuals should think about it. Yeah? We shouldn't just think about the individuals and their picks. The way that we produce food should be more more environmentally friendly, and the way that we talk about this in society should be more environmentally friendly. So the problems that we face when consuming so much meat would be greenhouse gas emissions, and you can see that cattle has the largest impact on greenhouse gases because it takes so much space to grow cattle, and but the first plant-based uh, plant-based foods that impact the environment are chocolate and coffee, and you can see that it is only after the beef and dairy and lamb and cheese consumption or supply chain. Yeah, but you can see that chocolate and coffee doesn't take as much and doesn't create as much greenhouse gases. Another reason would be deforestation. Yeah? So to grow cattle, we deforest huge amounts of forest just to create cattle and to create food for the cattle. Yeah? And it takes up too much place. And we create and it creates a lot of problems. But if we look at soy and how much space we use to grow soy, you might think, oh, but well, then people that don't eat meat are also at fault. But no, actually, 90% of soy that we grow in the world is used as livestock, as food for livestock. So maybe if we use less of this soy to to feed the cattle, we could use more of it for ourselves. So we can't just look at the situation from a very narrow point of view. We have to look at the situation on a more global scale. So keeping in mind about deforestation, one of the things that happened is species going extinct. So right now, it's species go extinct 1,000% faster than it usually than it did 100 years ago. So right now it happens 1,000 times faster, and one of the main reasons for this is how we use the planet, how we use the environment around us. If we deforest, if we make fields for livestock, and we make it harder for species to find mates and continue their species. So the livestock that we grow takes in biomass takes up 96% of the mass of the whole world. I think he meant 60. And 5%, only 4% is wild animals like buffaloes and all and elephants, yeah. And you might think, well, why these huge animals? They should take up more. They should take up more space, but they also take up a lot of space to live, yeah? But they don't have the space anymore, so they go extinct. So when's the last time did you see cows or pigs that just live in the wild? No, but you don't. Usually you see them on farms, during transit, and in your stores. So we don't see them just living regularly, yeah? But when you see the consumption of meat that we that we consume, so the amounts of meat that we consume, then you can see that this is an issue, because all of these animals have to live somewhere. So, as I said before, growing livestock takes up way more space than it does growing plant-based foods. Yeah? So in the same place where we grow enough cattle for one person, in the same place we could feed way more people by growing plant-based foods. So if we would, the whole world, go completely vegetarian right now, we could feed the whole world with plant-based foods by using just 1/6 of the space that livestock and growing livestock takes right now. So we could improve not just the environment and biodiversity, but our diets. So another issue is water consumption. So maybe we don't feel it as much here in Latvia, but you can see news around the world where huge droughts have become a problem, where we don't even have enough water for ourselves, much less so to grow the huge amounts of water that cattle require. Like here, the example is to grow 1 kilo of pork, we need more than 6,000 liters of water, which seems so weird. Just a little amount, a kilo of meat is 118 showers worth of water. And if you don't trust these numbers, I am going to show you the places where I got all of this information. So another thing that I think is very important is that if we feel like animals are just nothing, just pieces of meat with no emotions, then it's one thing. But if we think that animals are living beings, for example, like the cows here that we see here, or little cows that we couldn't grow for cattle or to get milk from them. For example, if we have small cattle, and you see that they're not going to grow up to be livestock, and they are not going to be milk producers, they still get slaughtered and made into small sausages then. Another issue is just how much do we talk about this? How much do we show the society? How do we grow our livestock? In what environment do they grow up? How do they live? And what we see in commercials and in meat commercials really doesn't show how we grow the livestock, because there's no realism to it. You don't see how they actually live, and the commercials are not being honest. Maybe if we would see in what kind of conditions the cattle lives or the livestock lives, we might think twice about buying a cheap burger. So maybe it should be that meat is more expensive if we want to give the livestock better living conditions, and if we care about how we treat animals. So it's not just up to the government to set these rules. It's also up to us and who we even elect in the government, and what we are ready to buy. What do we put? Do we put our money where our mouths are? And for one example, we look at cats and dogs, and we protect them more than ever before. If they have some kind of issues, we go to the vet and try to help them and spend all the money that we can just to make their lives better. We call them by their names, we know how old they are. But on the other side, That's just a small amount of all animals, dogs and cats, yeah? So there's like a double standard, yeah? At one point, we view cats and dogs as parts of our family, but on the other side, there's those animals that are just things that are just grown and cleaned just to get a product out of them, either meat or hide or something. But ideologically and actual biology, there is no difference between these animals. They are both animals. Some even say that that pigs are smarter than dogs, and they could be better pets than dogs. But we do not actually give these animals the opportunity to we don't give these animals the opportunity to we don't give society the opportunity to get to know these animals, so we just look at them as just a piece of meat with four legs, yeah. So maybe if we'd have the opportunity to see these animals and kind of see the situation from a different side, maybe we wouldn't think only as we wouldn't think of cats and dogs as our pets, but we'd realize that all animals are the same. So it's maybe this speciesism, yeah? It's almost as racism. It's almost like racism. Just because you're a different color, it doesn't mean that you have less value. The same thing, the same way as racism, we have speciesism, where just because some species we view as pets, we just mistreat other species without thinking about it twice, even if they don't deserve it. So it's a huge philosophical question that's really connected with these ecological connected with the ecological situation in the world. And nowadays you can see that it goes hand in hand. A lot of animal protection organizations have started talking more about the environmental impact as well. So trying to speak more about the fact that growing cattle and growing meat is not just bad as a bad from the view. I'm sorry. So if we view animals as as beings that should be here on the planet and who we should take care of, then we should realize that the species does not matter. So shortly, that is my talk. So I hope that you have had fun. You can decide not to trust the information that I gave you, but then I would ask you to please check the information that I used. So in my Instagram profile, Zootech, I'm going to also add all the information that I used in this presentation. You can check it yourself. So thank you, Sandri. Please don't run away. I would like to thank you from Ventspils Technicums as well. So thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Really impressive conference. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for being here.